What's up, world? Welcome to another episode of EastKnows. I'm East, and today we'll be discussing the road to March Madness. In this video, we'll be discussing on how teams looked on their opening night, as well as what that might mean for their future. It is hard to predict how teams will look in March based on what they did in November, but it does give us something credible to talk about. Games kicked off last night, and all the Blue Bloods came to play, with the exception of Kentucky, it seems. The Wildcats didn't seem like they came to play. They had guys that just pretty much are suffering from the same issues that they had last year. No consistency, not being assertive. And so you have guys that are playing well. The bright spots would be their three players that I expected to play well: Reed Travis, Keldon Johnson, and Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is a guy that he was, I wouldn't say under the radar because he was a five-star prospect. However, he was kind of underrated. A lot of people don't know about him, and he doesn't get the same type of publicity as the rest of the recruiting class got. So he's a guy I expect to come in and score a lot. He's a good player, but he should have made more shots than he made last night. I think he was 1 for 6. So he is tall. He gets a lot of rebounds. I think he had 9 last night. So that's good, but you look for him to do more as the season progresses. Then you have a guy like Keldon Johnson, who was heralded coming out of Oak Hill Academy as a scorer. He definitely lived up to his reputation. He had 23 points last night. I think he only went 1 for 3, so he's a true scorer opposed to being a shooter. But I think that his three-point percentage and three-point shooting will go up as the season progresses. Look for him to be a big name for Kentucky and a big reason why they'll be one of the top teams in the SEC. Then you have a guy like Reed Travis. Reed Travis was a transfer from Stanford. He's a very good player. He's a strong guy. He's a senior now. So he's got the body and he's just got a lot of experience that he can bring to the team. And he showed that he will be a consistent player. I think he'll be consistent throughout the season. He had 7 rebounds and then he had 22 points. I think this will continue to go through the season, and we'll see this maybe even a little bit better at the end of the season. There's some times where he could blow up and really get 30 points, and then there'll be some times where you see him fall off for about 15. But overall, he's a very good player. And then, as we mentioned before, Kentucky will have a lot of inconsistencies. A lot of their sophomores that returned are just not producing, and sometimes they will be there for 15 to 20 points, and then sometimes you'll see guys like Richardson, Washington, Quade Green, and they just won't even score. Quade, he'll have maybe a few assists, but he's not an assertive point guard, and I think that's why players like Higgins and Quickly got the nod over him and as starters. Higgins is not only younger, he reclassified, so he's maybe a year younger than what he's supposed to be, and it's crazy that Quade wasn't able to produce at a higher level. I think I've kind of been down on Quade since I saw him in the Peach Jam a few years back where he played against Trae Young, and he did the same thing in person. He wasn't assertive as a point guard. He doesn't impose his will as a playmaker or as a scorer. So it'll be interesting to see as his sophomore year progresses what he'll do. I think we can expect more from Quickly and Higgins, as both of them are athletic. They're very fearless type of players. They have a lot of heart, but they are still young and they are freshmen. So look for those guys as the season progresses to be able to really live up to their ability and their talent. So what does this mean? Overall, I think Kentucky will be a great team in the future. I think they'll have a great team in March. However, it's going to be some growing pains because they are so young and experienced. Look for Reed Travis and Keldon Johnson to really take over the team, and look for Tyler Hero to kind of be that X factor. And hopefully the freshman point guards can really step up and show that they're that athletic, dynamic type of point guard that Coach Cal is used to having. While the Wildcats had a disappointing debut, the opposing team did not. The Duke Blue Devils came in to make a statement and executed as they dominated Kentucky. Duke seemed to peak in the opener, and I think this is what was most surprising for everyone. The major question concerning Duke was, how would their 4 freshmen, who all play in a similar way, coexist? According to the performance of RJ Barrett and Zion Williamson, quite nicely. The two really complemented each other's games. RJ Barrett, who led the FIBA World Team and Canadian National Team, proved to be a leader. He showed versatility as a facilitator and as a playmaker, scoring 33 points and having 6 assists along with it. He can drive, shoot, and pass really well, and he has a very good defensive presence. He's a long, streaky guy. I think he'll be the difference for this Duke team. As in the past, I think they've lacked a true leader and a guy that's really going to get after it and push guys to play harder and play better. I think with this team, he'll be the one that really pushes guys to do things and get them over the hump, as they've always had the talent every year, but they've never really had the drive or certain situations where, for whatever reason, they just couldn't live up to their potential. I think RJ Barrett really gives them the potential to do that. Zion Williamson, not just a YouTube sensation, had an impressive showing as well. Scoring 28 points on 11 and 13 shooting is just quite impressive. With RJ and Cam on the court, he has a lot of space, so you saw him hit a more open three-point shot, and he's just able to really work his game. So he has a lot of spacing, and working with RJ on the perimeter on the defensive side, they get a lot of steals and they find each other to pass. So you kind of have to pick your poison on how you want to guard them, as well as what happens on the fast break with this team. Zion definitely proved that he's just more than a dunker. He posted up, he handled the ball in transition, he hit the shots, a couple jumpers, and you just see that he's a very versatile type of player, but his bread and butter is still his athleticism and strength. And so on the post-ups, you'll see him create space with his arms, back guys down, really get in there, and then finish with his athleticism, with his left hand. He has good touch. I think the Charles Barkley comparisons weren't far off. Some people said that's a bit far-fetched, but if you look at their body size and the way that they play, they do a lot of things similar, especially when it comes to their post-game. In transition, I think he can look a little bit like a Larry Johnson, or even have some Draymond Green in him, except for being more athletic, of course. Next, we have to discuss Cam Reddish, the other great recruit in this class. Cam, who is also a small forward like RJ and Zion, has a lot of the same things. He's a big guy, he handles the ball, he likes to facilitate, and he's very ball dominant. However, I think he fits in with this Duke team because he's very smooth and he's one of the better shooters on the team. You'll see him handle the ball. He kind of reminds me of that typical Pennsylvania guard like Wayne Ellington, Tyreek Evans, where he has a smooth handle, but he also has a smooth release to complement it. And you'll see him kind of fall back more. So where the other two might have 25 to 30 points a game, he'll definitely be in the 15 to 25 range. And sometimes he might be the leading scorer, but most of the time I think Cam has that personality and type of games where he can just kind of fall back and let the game come to him, and he takes what he needs. Running point for the team will be the little brother of Tyus Jones, Trey Jones. He plays just like his brother. They look alike, and he's a pretty good shooter. Probably not the best shooter, but you'll definitely see him take a more relaxed role as well. He'll be more deferent to the other stars. If he needs to take over like his brother, he will step up and has the ability to definitely take over and finish games out. However, with this team, he'll just mostly facilitate. He had 7 assists last night, and so I think you'll definitely see that out of him for the rest of the season. Also, you have Marquise Bolden, another big guy. He's a traditional Duke big man. You've seen a Jahlil Okafor on their team, but he'll be more of that role where he's a big body, kind of like Plumlee and Big Z Zubac was back in the day. He'll just definitely be a big body, get a lot of rebounds, catch lobs, get the rebounds, putbacks, things like that. So he had 4 fouls, so that shows you like his ability to handle defensive assignments. He'll just be that big body. He's a pretty decent player. I think he was a 5-star recruit coming out, but I don't think he's lived up to it. He wanted to transfer at one point in time. However, I think Coach K convinced him to stay and work on his game, and that he would get more minutes as the years went on. And lastly, you'll see Duke just use about 7 to 8 people off their bench for a total of the season. And I think overall these guys, they'll just get the trash minutes, but Coach K likes to keep his starters in a lot and maybe substitute 1 or 2 guys really, and they'll get some decent shots, but they won't get a lot of point production from them. Maybe just some minutes, some rebounding, and some good defense. So what does that mean for the Duke coming forward? Well, as I said earlier, this was the peak. This is what everyone thought that the team had the potential to do, but I don't believe anyone thought that they would hit this stride first game against a team like Kentucky. They just really showed that they can play together, which is the important thing. I think that was the biggest question. How would these guys play together? And they just proved that they complement each other so nicely and that they can do so many different things. And I believe that with the coaching of Coach K, they're just going to be a pretty stellar team. There's no reason that this team can't make it to the Final Four, possibly win the championship. They definitely have that type of potential. So let's see if they can keep it. I think one question you always have to ask with a Duke team is, can they stay healthy? Let's talk about the North Carolina Tar Heels. The Heels got revenge from last season as they defeated Wofford by 11. The Heels showed some good things as Luke May, Cam Johnson, and Garrison Brooks delivered productive performances. Luke May, who had a quiet preseason, showed why he is expected to have all ACC honors and will show up consistently every game from here on out. I think for Luke May, the best have a great season is for him to definitely have those opportunities to both stretch the floor as a stretch floor, as he's one of Carolina's better shooters, and also have opportunities to play with his back to the basket and post up, as he's one of their better rebounders. A lot of what happens with Luke May will depend on Garrison Brooks. Garrison Brooks was a 4-star recruit coming to Chapel Hill, so it's expected for him to make the leap as the best of the big man out of the sophomore class. He has been stepping up since the preseason, allowing Roy Williams to play his traditional 2 big man lineup. But I think he'll definitely need to continue to have performances like he had the other night, as he had 20 points. Garrison Brooks definitely has talent, but he'll definitely need to step up. I don't expect him to have 20 points every night, but 12 to 15 is definitely reasonable for him, especially if he can get 6 to 7 rebounds a day. Another bright spot for the Tar Heels was Cam Johnson. The senior hit 5 treys, and he had a reputation as a shooter when he transferred to Carolina. As a taller player, he is also expected to contribute defensively and as a rebounder, which he did by leading the Heels with 8 rebounds. Cam will definitely be a big part if Carolina wants to play in a small ball lineup, as he's 6'8", 6'9". So him, along with the other tall players, maybe playing the 3 spot or the 4 spot, will definitely help Carolina contribute to the small ball lineup. Negatives for the Heels fall first on senior Kenny Williams. Regarded as a scorer and defender, it is disappointing to see him get 29 minutes and not score the ball. He did other things well, like pass the ball and rebound, but Carolina will need him to score if they want to reach their peak. In my personal opinion, Kenny would serve best as a 6-man, being the first scoring option off the bench. He's also a playmaker and can handle the ball quite well, so I think him playing as the first guy off the bench and coming off as a 6-man would definitely benefit the Tar Heels as they move forward throughout the season. Kobe White in his freshman debut had an average showing. I think as he has great size at 6'4" and great scoring ability, he has earned the opportunity to be North Carolina's next point guard. If he can score like he has shown in the past, being the state of North Carolina's all-time leading scorer, he'll make the Tar Heels a very dangerous scoring team. They'll be able to shoot very well as have the size and strength to go and get their spots in the lane as they please. He'll definitely need to work on being a facilitator and controlling his speed, as sometimes he can kind of outrun himself and lose the ball and create turnovers. I think it's important to note that Seven Woods is a very good option as the backup point guard. Seven Woods is fast. He's gotten back to his old self, being a very athletic player, dunking on people, and then he's also shown that he's been healthier. So he's been plagued by injuries in the past, and also he has showed that he has a lack of confidence. So now that he's gotten his confidence up and says that he's more integrated and knows the system better, I think he'll be a very fantastic player when you take a guy like Kobe White out and then put a dynamic player like Seventh Woods in. You don't drop off much, and you'll get a lot of just great plays coming in for Carolina. So that adds to their depth, and I think it'll be good for Seventh Woods and for Carolina. Lastly, let's talk about 5-star recruit Nasir Little out of Florida. I think it was very disappointing for Nasir Little to play only 20 minutes, and I think it'll be a mistake for Carolina if that continues. Little is projected to be a top 5 draft pick on some boards, and he should get the opportunity to show his ability to be a playmaker at Carolina. Because North Carolina hasn't had this type of high-profile 5-star prospect in a while, I think it's very important for the future, especially, to get a player or a great wing player like Nasir Little into the game and let him show what he can do and let him prove himself with minutes. He only has 7 points, and I think he's capable of definitely scoring 15 plus points a game. He can shoot, he can drive, he's athletic, and then on the defensive end, he gives you a lot of opportunities to play against bigger guys and smaller guards because he's quick and long. He's a freak athlete, he can dunk the ball, and then he showed that he can even match up well with all of Duke's top freshmen as he went head to head against all of them. Just the fact that he has the athleticism and size to be able to do this shows that he has that ability, and I think it'll be a mistake for Carolina just not to capitalize on that. Consistency and players stepping up could be the difference for North Carolina getting to the Final Four again. They definitely have the ability. As I said before, they have a lot of guys that can score. They have a lot of athleticism, and they're very tall. So if this team is stepping up and just playing consistently like they could, they definitely have that opportunity to make the Final Four. It'll come up to Roy Williams and how he wants to do his lineups, and that's what North Carolina is going to have to figure out. Their identity is still kind of suspect right now. Are they a traditional two big man lineup, starting Garrison Brooks, Luke May, Cam Johnson, Kenny Williams, and Kobe White in that traditional lineup? Or should they go big and sit Garrison Brooks and start Nasir Little? I also, like I voiced earlier, I do believe a great lineup for them would be starting Kobe White as the point guard, Cam Johnson as the shooting guard, Nasir Little as the small forward, then bringing in Luke May and Garrison to round out the starting five. I think that class will just be that lineup will just be very tall, be very athletic, and then it gives you a lot of options, and then it gives you good options off the bench as well. But we'll see how Carolina progresses as the season goes on. Look for them to be, of course, in the top 3, top 2 in the ACC, and who knows, if they really peak to the team that they could be, they really could reach a Final Four. So what do you all think? Was there a team that did better on their first opening day, or are the 3 teams that I mentioned the best 3 teams that might end up going to the championship title game? Let me know in the comments. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And I'm EastKnows. Hope you enjoy.